She's not your concern anymore. The words cut through the champagne-soaked gala like a blade through silk. Rachel Pero felt her ex-boyfriend's hand fall away from her wrist as Ryam Yong-sun stepped between them with a kind of stillness that makes predators pause. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. The entire ballroom shifted. Conversations died mid-sentence. Glasses froze halfway to lips, and suddenly Rachel realized every eye in the room wasn't watching her ex. They were watching the man who'd just claimed her. But here's what Rachel didn't know yet. 3 days earlier, her boyfriend had sold every intimate detail of her life, her routines, her fears, her passwords, her secrets, to a wealthy heiress named Min Sarah. Except Min Sarah wasn't collecting gossip. She was collecting ammunition. And the moment that information changed hands, Rachel Pero became a target. The betrayal wasn't romantic. It was transactional. And now someone very dangerous knew exactly where Rachel would be every hour of every day. Then the messages started. Unknown numbers. Photos she never posed for. Surveillance footage from angles that shouldn't exist. Her morning coffee order. The route she took to work. The name of her childhood dog. All delivered with timestamps and locations so precise they felt like a countdown. And then came the envelope. Inside, a single photograph of Rachel leaving her apartment. Her face marked with a red circle. Below it, handwritten in ink that looked too deliberate to be anything but a promise. Debts are paid in blood. His guardian can't save everyone. That's when Ryam Yong-sun appeared. Not with explanations. Not with comfort. With a marriage certificate, 2 witnesses, and a car idling outside with blacked-out windows. Rachel was given 10 minutes to decide whether she wanted protection or a funeral. She chose survival. What she didn't choose was understanding. Because Ryam Yong-sun isn't a corporate executive. He's the man Seoul's underworld whispers about in back rooms and deleted texts. He doesn't run a company. He runs an empire built on fear, loyalty, and the kind of violence that never makes the news because the people who could report it don't survive to talk. And Rachel, the woman in the elegant black dress with a controlled posture and the observant eyes, just became his most dangerous asset. Or his greatest liability. Even Yong-sun isn't sure yet. But his enemies? They're watching. They're measuring. They're waiting to see if Rachel Pero will shatter under pressure, or if she'll become the thing they should have feared all along. Subscribe to see how this unfolds and comment where you're watching from. I will love to say hello to you just to know how far our story is going. Rachel learned the truth in a hospital waiting room at 2:47 a.m. She hadn't planned to be there. She'd been halfway home from the gala when her phone buzzed with a message from her ex-boyfriend's number. Emergency. St. Mary's Hospital. Room 304. Come alone. She should have ignored it. Should have blocked the number and kept driving. But 3 years of conditioning, 3 years of being the person who showed up, who fixed things, who stayed loyal, made her turn the car around. Room 304 was empty, except for Min Sarah. The heiress sat in the visitor's chair like it was a throne, legs crossed, perfectly manicured nails tapping against her phone screen. She didn't look up when Rachel entered. Didn't acknowledge her at all until Rachel asked, "Where is he?" "Home, I assume." Min Sarah's voice was bored, dismissive. "I sent the text. He doesn't know you're here." Rachel's hand tightened on her purse strap. "Why?" "Because I wanted to see if you were worth the price he quoted." Min Sarah finally looked up, and her smile was the kind that came with terms and conditions. "Turns out you are." Though not for the reasons he thought. She slid a folder across the small table between them. Rachel didn't touch it. "Go ahead," Min Sarah said. "Open it. It's yours, after all." "Well, it was yours. Technically, I own it now." The folder contained printouts, bank statements, medical records, therapy session notes from when Rachel was 19 and struggling with anxiety, photos from her private social media accounts, text messages, emails, a full psychological profile written in clinical language that reduced 3 years of her life to bullet points and risk assessments. Rachel's hand shook as she flipped through pages that shouldn't exist outside her own memory. "He sold it all," Min Sarah said, examining her nails. For $200,000 and an introduction to my father's investment firm. I'd say you should feel flattered, but honestly, I've paid more for cars.
She paused.
The interesting part isn't what he sold. It's who wanted to buy it. Rachel looked up. Who? People who believe your leverage against someone very important. Sarah stood, smoothing her dress. I wasn't supposed to tell you that. But I'm curious to see what you'll do with the information. Run? Hide? Cry? She tilted her head. Or will you do something unexpected? She left without waiting for an answer. Rachel sat alone in the empty hospital room, holding documentation of her own life like evidence at a crime scene. Her phone buzzed. Another unknown number. She answered without thinking. Miss Pero. The voice was male, calm, unfamiliar. A car is waiting for you in the south parking lot. Black sedan. License plate ending in 7492. Get in. Who is this? Someone who knows you're in danger. The kind that doesn't wait for you to be ready. The line went dead. Rachel walked to the window. 4 stories down, in the dimly lit parking lot, a black sedan idled near the exit. As she watched, 2 men in dark suits emerged from a separate vehicle and began walking toward the hospital entrance. Her phone buzzed again. Same number. This time, a text. They're coming for the folder. You have 90 seconds. Rachel ran. She took the stairs, not the elevator, her heels echoing against concrete as she descended 4 flights in what felt like free fall. Her heart hammered against her ribs. The folder pressed against her chest, evidence of a transaction she'd never consented to. The sedan's back door opened as she burst through the exit. She didn't think. She just moved. The door locked behind her before she could change her mind. The car pulled away smoothly, silently, and Rachel finally looked at the man sitting beside her. Ryam Yong-sun didn't speak. He sat with his hands folded in his lap, posture relaxed, gaze fixed straight ahead. His suit was immaculate even at 3 a.m. His expression revealed nothing. You're my ex's guardian, Rachel said, trying to steady her breathing. Legally, yes. Why are you here? Because you're about to become a problem. He turned to look at her then, and Rachel understood immediately why people whispered his name with careful vowels. His eyes weren't cold. They were empty of everything except assessment. Not through any fault of your own. But that won't matter to the people who want you. Want me for what? Leverage. Proof of concept. A message. He glanced at the folder still clutched against her chest. You've seen what he sold. You haven't yet understood why anyone would buy it. The car turned onto a highway Rachel didn't recognize. The city lights blurred past like distant stars. Where are we going? Somewhere you can make a choice, Yong-sun said. Though I should warn you, one of the options ends with your name in tomorrow's obituaries. Rachel's throat tightened. And the other option? Ends with your name on a marriage certificate. She thought she'd misheard him. The words didn't make sense strung together like that, didn't follow any logical progression from betrayal to hospital to speeding car to, you're insane.
No.
Yong-sun's voice remained perfectly level. I'm strategic. There's a difference. The car pulled into an underground parking structure. Rachel recognized nothing about the building. Gray concrete, fluorescent lights, numbered spaces that all looked identical. The driver opened her door. Yong-sun stepped out and waited. Rachel didn't move. You can stay in the car, Yong-sun said. In approximately 4 hours, the people who paid for your information will realize you're missing. They'll widen their search. They'll find you within 6 hours after that. What happens next depends on how much they think you know and how useful you might be. He adjusted his cufflinks with the precision of someone performing surgery. Or you can come upstairs, sign a document, and become untouchable. He met her eyes. The marriage is legal. The protection is real. Everything else is negotiable. Rachel got out of the car. The office upstairs was sparse. A desk. 2 chairs. A woman in a gray suit who didn't introduce herself, but laid out papers with the efficiency of someone who'd done this before. Marriage certificate. Non-disclosure agreement. Power of attorney. Each page flagged with a tab marked with Rachel's signature line. Read it if you want, Young-sun said. Or don't. The terms won't change, and we're working on a timeline. Rachel skimmed the first page. Her hands still trembled. This says we're already married. Yesterday. 4 p.m. Correct. I wasn't there. You were represented by proxy. Legal in 12 countries, including this one. Young-sun sat down across from her. I needed the paperwork filed before certain people started looking. Now I need your signature to make it binding. You married me without my consent. I created a legal shield before you were murdered without your consent. His voice never rose. I understand the former feels like a violation. I promise you, it's preferable to the latter. Rachel looked at the papers, at the woman waiting with a pen, at Ryam Young-sun, who watched her with the patience of someone who already knew her answer.
She signed.
Her hand moved across each flag tab, her signature appearing 6 times in blue ink that felt permanent in a way nothing else in her life ever had. The woman collected the papers, nodded once to Young-sun, and left. Rachel and her new husband sat in silence. What happens now? Rachel asked finally. Now you learn the rules. What rules? Young-sun stood. The ones that keep you alive. The apartment he brought her to was in a building with no visible address and security that checked 3 forms of ID before letting them pass. Inside, everything was precise. Clean lines. Neutral colors. Furniture that looked expensive because of what it lacked, not what it had. This is yours, Young-sun said, gesturing to the space. Your belongings will be moved here by tomorrow afternoon. Don't return to your previous residence. For how long? Indefinitely. Rachel turned in a slow circle, taking in her new prison. Are you going to tell me why any of this is happening? Eventually, Young-sun walked to the window, hands in his pockets. When you're ready to hear it. I'm ready now.
No.
You're in shock. He didn't turn around. Tomorrow, someone will brief you on security protocols. Memorize them. Follow them exactly. Don't improvise. Security protocols for what? For staying alive long enough to understand what you've become part of. Rachel felt exhaustion crash over her like a wave. And what have I become part of? Young-sun finally looked at her. My world. Whether that's a shelter or a trap depends entirely on what you do next. He left without another word. The door locked behind him with a soft, final click. Rachel stood alone in her new apartment, her new life, and realized she couldn't remember the last time she'd made a choice that felt like her own. The rules arrived in a leather folder the next morning, delivered by a woman who introduced herself as Minji and spoke in the calm, measured tones of someone delivering a weather report instead of a list of restrictions that would govern Rachel's entire existence. No social media under any circumstances. No contact with previous acquaintances without approval. No travel outside designated zones. No packages accepted without screening. Minji didn't pause for questions. Your phone has been replaced. The only numbers programmed are approved contacts. Don't add others. Rachel looked at the new phone on the table. What if there's an emergency? Then you call the first number. Someone will respond within 3 minutes. What if? There are no other scenarios. Minji's smile was professional and empty. If you can imagine it, it's covered. If you can't imagine it, it's still covered. The days blurred together. Rachel learned to check over her shoulder without appearing to. Learned to recognize the 3 security personnel who rotated shifts outside her building. Learned that every car ride followed a different route, that her coffee order was never placed by her, that someone checked her mail before she saw it. She also learned that Ryam Young-sun lived in the same building but 3 floors up, and she never saw him unless he chose to be seen. 2 weeks into her new life, Rachel noticed the pattern. The same silver SUV appeared 4 blocks behind her car every Tuesday and Thursday. Different driver each time, but the same vehicle. Same distance. When she mentioned it to her security detail, they exchanged a glance she couldn't read. We'll look into it, they said. But the SUV appeared again the next Thursday. And the Thursday after that. Rachel started watching for other things. The woman in the coffee shop who always left exactly 30 seconds after Rachel arrived. the maintenance worker who seemed to service her building's elevators twice a week, the photographer in the park who never quite pointed his camera at the scenery. She kept a list.
Times.
Descriptions. Patterns that felt too consistent to be coincidence. When Young-sun finally visited her apartment again, 3 weeks after the marriage, Rachel handed him the list. He read it in silence. His expression didn't change. When he finished, he looked at her with something that might have been approval or might have been concern. Rachel couldn't tell the difference anymore. "You notice things," he said. "I notice when I'm being hunted."
Good.
He folded the list and slipped it into his jacket pocket. "That means you're learning." "Learning what?" "To be paranoid. To be aware." Young-sun walked to her window, looking down at the street below. "Paranoia is fear without foundation. You have foundation." Rachel joined him at the window. "The silver SUV?" "Is exactly what you think it is." Her chest tightened. "Then why haven't you stopped it?" "Because stopping surveillance doesn't eliminate the people doing it. It just makes them more creative." He turned to face her. "They need to believe you don't matter yet. That you're just an acquisition. Something decorative I picked up to make a point. And when they realize I'm not?" Young-sun's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "Then we move to the next phase." "Which is?" "Making sure they regret underestimating you." He left again, and Rachel stood at the window, watching the street, counting the cars, memorizing faces. Somewhere out there, people were watching her back. Measuring her worth, deciding whether she was a tool or a target. She pressed her palm against the cold glass and wondered which answer would keep her alive longer. The truth arrived on a Tuesday afternoon in the form of a manila envelope slipped under Rachel's door. No note, no return address, just photographs. Rachel spread them across her kitchen table with hands that had learned not to shake anymore. The images showed Ryam Young-sun in contexts that shattered every corporate facade she'd been told to believe. A warehouse in Busan with men kneeling before him. A private airport where cargo containers were loaded under armed supervision. A restaurant in Seoul's financial district where politicians and judges sat at his table with the posture of people receiving orders, not having dinner. The final photograph was different. Older. The edges worn like someone had carried it for years. It showed Young-sun younger, standing beside a woman whose smile was bright enough to seem fragile. She wore a white dress and held his hand with a kind of grip that suggested she knew what holding on required. Rachel flipped the photo over. On the back, written in faded ink, Salmon. 1995. 3 weeks before. Before what? She heard the lock mechanism on her door disengage. Only 2 people had that access. Security always knocked first. Young-sun entered and stopped when he saw the photographs. His expression didn't change, but something in his stillness shifted, became denser, more dangerous. "Who sent these?" His voice was quiet in the way that made Rachel's security training kick in. Quiet meant controlled. Controlled meant close to violence. "I don't know. They were under the door." He crossed to the table in 3 measured steps and looked at the images. When he reached the photograph of the woman, Salmon, his fingers hovered above it without touching, like it might disintegrate under contact. "Her name was Park Salmon," he said. "My wife." Rachel's breath caught. She died 30 years ago. 3 weeks after this photograph was taken. He finally picked it up, and Rachel saw something crack behind his eyes, something that had been sealed away so long it had fossilized. Someone sent her threats. Letters. Photos like the ones they've been sending you. I didn't take them seriously enough. Didn't move fast enough. Thought I could negotiate, find a political solution, handle it without escalation. He set the photo down with precision that felt like ritual. They killed her in our apartment while I was in a meeting I thought couldn't wait.
His jaw tightened.
I found her 4 hours later. The people responsible were dead within 4 days. Their entire organization was dismantled within 4 weeks. And I swore I would never hesitate again. Rachel understood then. The marriage. The rules. The surveillance she'd been taught to spot. None of it was improvised. It was all scar tissue from a wound that had never healed. "That's why you married me," she said. "Not to protect your empire. To avoid repeating your past." "Yes." He looked at her directly. "And to give you a chance I didn't give her. The choice to know what you're facing. To learn how to fight back. To become something other than a victim waiting for permission to survive." "What am I facing?" Young-sun gathered the photographs except for the one of Salman, which he slipped into his jacket pocket. "A network that's been trying to destabilize my operations for 2 years. They failed through direct confrontation. Failed through financial warfare. Failed through political pressure. So now they've chosen a different strategy." "Me."
You.
"Because they think you're the same vulnerability Salman was. They think history will repeat itself. They think I'll hesitate." His eyes met hers. "They're wrong." The test came 3 days later. Rachel was in the car with her usual security detail when the driver's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his expression went carefully blank. The kind of blank that meant bad news delivered through professional training. "Change of plans," he said. "We're taking you to a secondary location." Rachel's pulse quickened. "Why?" "Threat assessment. Protocol 7. Protocol 7 wasn't in the folder Minji had given her. Rachel had memorized every protocol. 7 didn't exist. "Stop the car," Rachel said. "Ma'am, I need you to. Stop the car now, or I'm calling the first number on my phone." Her hand was already moving toward her pocket. The driver's eyes flicked to the rearview mirror. To his partner in the passenger seat. Something unspoken passed between them, and Rachel knew with absolute clarity that these men weren't her security detail. She had her phone out, and the call connecting before either of them could react. It rang once. Location. Yongsun's voice was immediate, sharp. "I don't know. Heading north on." Rachel looked out the window, trying to find a street sign. "I can't see." They changed drivers. Protocol 7. These aren't. The car swerved hard right, throwing Rachel against the door. Her phone flew from her hand and disappeared under the seat. The driver accelerated, weaving through traffic with precision that suggested military training. "You're making this harder than it needs to be," the passenger said, turning to face her. He held a syringe. "We just want to talk. Ask you some questions about your husband. You cooperate, you go home. You fight, this gets unpleasant." Rachel's training kicked in. The training she'd absorbed through 3 weeks of watching, learning, understanding the rules beneath the rules. She looked at the door locks. Disabled. The windows. Reinforced. No weapon within reach. No escape route available. So she stopped trying to escape. "What do you want to know?" she asked. The passenger smiled. "Smart girl. See, this doesn't have to." Rachel slammed her elbow into the window with all her strength. The reinforced glass didn't break, but the impact set off the car's alarm system, a shrieking wail that made the driver flinch and swerve. In that half-second of distraction, Rachel lunged for the gear shift and yanked it into neutral. The car's engine roared. The driver cursed and fought for control as they coasted into the intersection. Horns blared. Brakes squealed. And through the chaos, Rachel saw 3 black SUVs converging from different directions, forming a perimeter that forced the sedan to a stop. Yong-sun emerged from the center vehicle before it fully stopped moving. He didn't run, didn't rush, just walked toward the sedan with the measured pace of someone who'd already decided how this ended. The driver and passenger saw him coming and made the calculation, survive or prove a point. They chose survival, hands visible, weapons dropped. Yong-sun opened Rachel's door himself. "Are you hurt?"
No.
Rachel's hands were shaking now, adrenaline crashing through her system in waves. "I didn't use Protocol 7. I didn't." "I know." He helped her out of the car, his grip steady. "You did exactly right." Rachel watched as his actual security team pulled the 2 men from the sedan. Efficient.
Silent.
The kind of removal that would leave no witnesses and no questions. "What happens to them?" she asked. "They answer questions. Then they disappear." Yong-sun's voice held no emotion. "Permanently." Rachel should have been horrified. Should have recoiled. Instead, she felt something darker settle into her chest, something that whispered these men had tried to take her, use her, hurt her, and now they would pay for it. She looked at Young-sun. This is what you do. Yes. This is what you wanted me to understand. Yes. Rachel took a breath. Good. Because I'm tired of being hunted. 2 days later, Young-sun asked her to attend a dinner. Business meeting, he said. High stakes. The people who've been targeting you will have representatives there. They'll expect you to be decorative. Frightened. Proof that I've acquired something fragile that can be broken. And you want me to be what instead? Present. He adjusted his cufflinks. Observant. Unafraid. Rachel understood. This wasn't about her attending a dinner. This was about her stepping into visibility, becoming a piece on the board instead of something to be captured. What if they test me? They will test you. Young-sun met her eyes. That's the point. The restaurant was private, the kind of establishment that didn't have a sign, didn't take reservations from anyone who needed to ask for the address. Rachel wore black because Young-sun had suggested it, and because she understood the language of power now. Black meant she wasn't trying to soften herself, wasn't apologizing for taking up space. The other guests watched her enter with the kind of attention that felt like appraisal. Rachel kept her expression neutral, her posture straight. She'd learned from Young-sun that silence could be its own form of armor. The woman seated across from them spoke first. Older, elegant, with the kind of smile that preceded cruelty. So this is the famous wife. The one who replaced Park Salman. Rachel felt Young-sun go still beside her. I didn't replace anyone, Rachel said, her voice steady. I'm here because I choose to be. The woman's smile sharpened.
Choice.
What a luxury.
Salman didn't have much choice at the end. Did she?
I wonder if you'll have more. Careful. Young-sun's voice cut through the air like a blade. You're testing the wrong person. Am I? The woman tilted her head. Because it seems to me you've made the same mistake twice. Found someone soft. Someone breakable. Someone who'll cost you everything when we decide she's more useful dead than alive. Rachel set down her water glass. The sound seemed loud in the sudden silence. You think I'm soft because I don't threaten people over dinner. You think I'm breakable because I haven't killed anyone yet. You think I'm a mistake because you're comparing me to a woman I never met. She leaned forward slightly. But here's what you're not understanding. I'm not Salman. I'm not a weakness. I'm a choice Young-sun made knowing exactly what it would cost. And if you think that makes me vulnerable, you've misunderstood what kind of man makes that choice twice. The woman's smile froze. Young-sun's hand found Rachel's under the table. Squeezed once. An acknowledgement that felt like approval and warning combined. The dinner continued, but the balance had shifted. Rachel had made herself visible, and in doing so, had become something his enemies couldn't quite categorize. Not a victim. Not a weapon. Something more complicated. When they left, Young-sun was quiet until they reached the car. Then he turned to her. You understand what you just did. I stopped pretending to be helpless. You declared yourself an active participant in a war you didn't start. Rachel looked at him steadily. I declared myself your wife. Actually your wife. Not a shield. Not a symbol. A partner who knows what world she married into and chooses it anyway. Something shifted in Young-sun's expression. The distance he'd maintained, the careful control, cracked just enough for Rachel to see what was underneath. Not coldness. Not calculation.
Fear.
The same fear that had driven every decision since Salman died. The fear that he'd fail again. Lose again. Stand over another body and know he'd moved too slow. I can't promise to keep you safe, he said quietly. I'm not asking you to. Rachel took his hand. I'm asking you to let me fight beside you instead of behind you. Young-sun looked at their joined hands. At Rachel. At the future neither of them could control, but both of them had chosen. Then we fight, he said. And for the first time since the betrayal that had rewritten her life, Rachel Perrow felt like she'd finally made a choice that was entirely her own. She'd chosen the fire, chosen the danger, chosen the man who'd married her to break a cycle of loss. And together, they would make sure his enemies regretted ever thinking she was the same mistake twice.